Good morning, good day, leaders. Can I confirm that I am being heard? Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much. Thank you, Leader Paul. I'd like to say a big thank you. Once again, good afternoon, good day. It's 12 o'clock from South Africa. I'm wondering what the time is in your country. Leaders, thank you so much for joining the IEDF Leadership Masterclass, Chapter 7, The Heart of a Servant Leader. It promises to be a very engaging session today. Thank you, everyone. And once again, thank you to the Global President for giving us opportunity to anchor, giving me particularly the opportunity to anchor this masterclass today with my co-facilitator on your screen right now. My name is Leader Mary Otibu, the Global Head of Leadership Training and Development. We want to start this noon with an opening prayer. We like an opening prayer, and I'll be very grateful to ask my dearest friend and comrade, Leader Paul, if you can lead us in an opening prayer. Please do unmute your mic and lead us in an opening prayer. Thank you so much, my leader. Thank you. If you are comfortable, can you lead us in
Yes,
an
yes,
opening prayer? Thank you,
yes.
Leader Paul. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together today. We ask for your guidance, wisdom, and unity as we discuss about the Leadership Masterclass, the art of a servant leader. Help us to listen with open minds and speak with honesty and respect. May our time together be productive and bring glory to your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Leader Paul. It's always an honor for us to commit our day, our meeting into the hands of the Lord. Thank you so much, leaders, once again for joining the call. On your screen is the program for today. So we're going into our why for. Why do I lead? Before I call any of the leaders on the call to share their personal why for, I'd like to share thoughts with you on our why for. Today's topic is a very important topic before we talk about the heart of a servant leader. There are certain questions I'm going to be asking you so that when you are sharing with us in this class today, your why for, I like your thoughts to be in this line. These master classes, it's an ongoing training for every one of us in IEDF. And one of the key things we're trying to do is to make sure that we have one mind, one goal, and together we can achieve our Vision 2030. I want to really say a big thank you to the Global President for giving us this masterclass, this guide, sharing with us his thought on leadership. So today in this particular model, chapter 7, before I ask you for your why for, I need you to think through this. Let's talk deeper. Let's ask certain questions about why are we really here to lead. I want us to take a deep moment and reflect. Why do I accept responsibilities? Why do I want influence? Why do I want growth and why do I want authority? Remember, our topic today is the leadership, the heart of a servant leader. All right. Is it because we want to be recognized? Is it because we want to prove something? Is it because we feel important? Or is it truly to serve? We're thinking about our why for now. Because leadership without a pure motive will eventually collapse leaders. If your why is ego, you will burn out. If your why is service, you will multiply. So today, in my opening, we are not just talking about leadership skills, which many of you have. However, we are talking about the leadership heart. That is where we are concentrating today, the leadership heart. So, with this opening, Once again, I'd like to thank you for joining. Then I will be opening the floor for two leaders to share with me their wife.
Okay, me, my why is for helping people. I want to be a leader to help people and to learn from people, to share what I know with others and what I have with others. Because sometimes you have some skills that other people can benefit. That's why I want to be a leader.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, leader. Thank you so much for that contribution. Leaders, we are now about to enter into the main course for today. Before we start, I want to say a big thank you to the global presidents for giving us this opportunity to have one of the leaders in the leadership development sector speak to us, in today's class on servant leadership. you know it's very important that while we lead, in my presentation some weeks ago, I had mentioned that leaders raise other leaders, and leaders lead from behind. So it's very humbling that the global president will give the platform to one of our chapter leaders in Uganda to speak to us about this masterclass, the topic on foundation of servant leadership, sharing with us his deep conviction after reading the masterclass. Leaders, I'd like you to listen to our presenter this afternoon. Be inspired and get ready. You might be the next person, talking to us. So in this master classes, we have decided to make it more interactive. The global president is giving us an opportunity to share within ourselves as leaders, like you just spoke now, as leaders, to share with ourselves from this masterclass. What has been the in-depth taking from you in this masterclass? Are you reading, and being able to apply your knowledge? And that's what our leader from Uganda is going to be talking to us about today. People from Uganda, I'm very sure there's a lot of team from Uganda. They're being mobilized to be here. Our leader is going to be speaking to us from Uganda. And please let everyone in the room give him love, just as I share with you his name. He's one of the IEDF chapter leaders for leadership training in Uganda. He's building his CDCs. He has digested the masterclass and has been so inspired by the masterclass. I'm sure by the time you listen to him this noonday, you'll be highly inspired to do more in your community. Leaders, let us welcome leader Mayabala Joseph from Uganda. Let's give him a big hand, and leader, over to you. Thank you. Thank
Hello,
you. Leader, over to you. Yes, we can hear you.
Hope you can hear me.
We can hear you, leader.
Hello,
Yes,
everybody.
we can.
Hello, Global. Hello, Africa. Hello, IEDF. I salute all of you members. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Hope you're fine. I begin my presentation today by saluting our global president, Mr. David Veyenta, for the great opportunity he has granted me to present to you today. I also want to take this opportunity to salute our enthusiastic, strong global head of leadership training, Madame Mary, for this great opportunity he has granted us to be here. One great leader from the United States of America called John F. Kennedy once said that great leaders are not leaders who build followers, but great leaders are leaders who build more great leaders. I highly believe that that quote resonates very well with today's topic of servant leadership. Comrades, in a special way, allow me to thank our global president, Mr. Venter, for this masterclass. The Almighty God has enabled me to go through the 16 chapters of the masterclass, and what I can tell you is that I've been greatly inspired. I've learned a lot, and hopefully by God's grace, it will enable me apply it into my leadership here in Uganda. By the names of Mayambala Joseph from Uganda, East Africa. Uganda happens to be one of the countries where the informal sector employs 92% of our working population, and it contributes 54% to our GDP. This is such a very, very big sector. It provides employment to millions and millions of people. It provides survival to millions and millions of people. And it provides taxes indirectly to our economy, to millions and millions of people. Such a greater sector needs trained servant leaders in order for us to enable it achieve or be part of the Vision 2030, which is to eradicate poverty. My today's inspiring quote is about he who wants to lead must be ready to serve. That inspires me greatly, and I hope all we leaders present here use it as one of our greatest pushing factors so that we offer servant leadership to our great people. My wife, Phil, as my sister, Comrade Mary, said, is she told us as leaders to reflect on the following questions. And from a practical example from Uganda, where I come from, I thank God I happen to have been close to very many leaders in the social and political world in the just concluded electoral cycle period. And I learned one thing that I saw here in the questions. I saw very many leaders fighting for office simply because they just wanted to get influence for their personal gain, simply because they just wanted to gain what you call personal growth, simply because they just wanted to get authority to persecute those they think are against them. That gave me a lesson that very many people were out there not really to serve, not because they were recognized. So I feel as leaders, we should always reflect on the following questions because they are greatly important to our calling we are heading towards. About the issue of ego. Very many institutions, very many organizations have collapsed, have lost the mission because of ego by we leaders. We do not focus on multiplication. We focus on building soft moments. That is why most associations, most organizations, and most would have been strong institutions have collapsed due to ego by leaders. So as we begin today's mentorship class, I beg we as leaders reflect on not just gaining leadership skills, but talking about the leadership art. I start today's leadership class with talking about the foundation of leadership. As I very well know, most of us here are Christians, and a few of us are Muslims. Jesus Christ is mentioned and respected by both religions. We Christians look at Jesus Christ as the Son of God. Our brothers and sisters who on the Muslim world look at Jesus Christ as a prophet. But in the Bible, John 13, Jesus Christ washed the feet of his disciples. Foot washing was the lowest servant task, yet he had all authority. As I had earlier stated, Jesus being a prophet according to my brothers in Islam and being the Son of God according to we Christians, he had authority. He would have delegated it to another person, but he chose to be as an example. He knew who he was, he knew where he was coming from, he knew where he was going, and because of his security, he could serve. And after washing their feet, quote by the Bible, he said, I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. So as leaders, I think we should reflect from this Jesus example. As leaders, sometimes we need to take on the smallest tasks ahead to serve as an example to the people we are leading, so that tomorrow when we send them for tasks, they will not look at it as degrading, but they will look at it as a motivation to even serve better and better and better. So this model is very, very clear. This is the greatest leader. This is the greatest servant. We all, I think, admit on that. This is not a weakness. This is a controlled strength. A leader, a servant leader who serves by example, who begins by acting and serving on the smallest tasks, on the easiest tasks, on those tasks that might be looked at as low tasks. It can be cleaning an office, it can be doing something that is made for junior servants, motivates your juniors, motivates those who are following you to know what to do and to know that it's controlled strength, not weakness. What is servant leadership? A servant leader builds people, not platforms. Yes, I'm going to give you an example based on my Ugandan experience. You see, in Uganda, you have very many associations that bring up together people, association of workers, association of drivers, associations of manufacturers, associations of teachers, associations of musicians. But I'm going to give you an example. One time we had the Uganda Musicians Association for diplomatic purposes. I mean, Uganda, I have no problem. I'll mention that. It was formed based on emotional feelings. One of the comrades that died, and people started up an association, of course. But because all the people that got leadership focused more on building platforms, focused more on building and nursing their personal ego, rather than advocating for the real issues that how would they empower themselves through achieving copyright. Up to now, the association ended up dividing into other groups who would not do anything good for it, but it ended up creating groups that would fight each other, and up to now, they are being used by politicians as baits to fight wars instead of using them to foster their development. So that came when leaders who got the opportunity to lead the association focused more on building their personal platform, strengthening their personal platforms instead of strengthening members. So this was a very, very great mistake. And as leaders, we should focus more on building what we call people, not platforms. Because people, the more people you build, the more multiplication you're doing, the more chances of having an association to spread and survive even beyond you. As a servant leader, you have to use authority to empower. You have to empower the people you're leading. You have to empower the people you're working with. You have to empower the people you're advocating for. I have a very, very great example of my great leader, our global president, President David Venter. President David Venter gave in his masterclass for free for us to get knowledge, for us to learn. It has resourceful knowledge. It has resourceful examples of issues. That is the empowerment. He is empowering most of us by accessing his cup of wisdom. A servant leader protects mission above personal ambition. Very many associations, very many missions.
Please mute your mic if you are not speaking. Please, you are distracting the class. Thank you. Go ahead.
I beg you, mute your mic. I was emphasizing the purpose of protecting missions over personal ambitions. One of the diseases that our associations and institutions and nations in Africa have collapsed is simply because some leaders protect and promote their personal ambitions over the great mission that would benefit the many. That is why very many countries today are war torn. That is why very many organizations and associations globally have collapsed, have been accused of corruption. Leaders are being arrested for corruption simply because they focused more on their personal ambition, enriching themselves, of achieving their personal visibility, rather than building a strong mission that can serve millions and millions of people, developing others intentionally. That is very key if you're to be a very great servant leader. Being secure enough to release others. As you know, one of our core values in the Katasa model is sending people. Some people feel insecure to send people after training them. That is part of the cause of the stagnation of most of our associations and most of our nations in Africa. We do not want to send people. We do not want to empower, to send those we've empowered, those we've impacted with knowledge. So as servant leader, as servant leaders, servant leadership is leadership with a clean heart. And that takes us to our next topic of the heart check. Every leader, all leaders here, we must put it to consideration to always ask ourselves the following questions as our thorough heart check. The first one is, do I need to be the smartest in the room? Am I threatened by strong people? Do I celebrate other people's success? How would my team describe me? I'm going to give you an example. Hopefully, one will be from Uganda. The rest I might not mention the country's names for purposes of diplomacy, but you will know, and for purposes of learning, you get to know. The first question is, do I need to be the smartest in the room? Am I threatened by strong people around me? Very many nations and organizations have collapsed simply because their proprietors want sycophants, want people who are going to sit there and clap for them, want people who they can easily manipulate to take them into acts of corruption, acts of manipulation, acts of creating fallacies, creating, how do they call them? Carrots. Real servant leaders are not threatened by strong people surrounding them, because the more you create more good leaders, is the more chances of creating an institution that has strong, independent institutions that can push it beyond and beyond. The reason why today Africa's war torn is simply because people are insecure of strong people surrounding them. Do you celebrate other people's success? Very many of us here would rather sabotage people's careers simply because if they get successful, they will become a threat to us. They will minimize our opportunities. Yet we are killing things that would help our old generation. So, as leaders, we should always think about celebrating other people's success, because if you do not do so, that will lead to ego. If leadership becomes ego, the mission suffers. If leadership remains above service delivery, the mission multiplies. Comrades, leaders globally who have spearheaded ego over creating mission, their missions have suffered. These are some of these are political leaders. There are nations, you know, in Africa that were once strong economies, with strong militaries, with strong financial cash flows, but simply because leaders prioritize ego over mission, their nations today are war torn. People are fighting simply because they fail to answer the question of transition. They fail to push mission. Leaders, you know, of organizations that have collapsed, that have not survived to move beyond one leader to another leader, simply because leaders of those associations prioritize ego over mission. For diplomatic purposes, I might not mention names, but I know you know. And comrades, you know of nations that have thrived politically, that have thrived economically, simply because leaders in those nations prioritized mission over ego, prioritized building strong independent institutions, prioritized training others over personal ambitions, and they have multiplied. Ladies and gentlemen, you know of international companies that have expanded globally simply because their founding fathers prioritized mission over ego. That is why today we can wake up with companies like Coca-Cola, who have survived for more than 130 years. They have plants in almost each and every nation. That is not something easy if you do not prioritize. If you do not prioritize what we call mission. We've seen companies that have stagnated simply because their leaders are prioritizing ego. That takes us to the question of servant leadership through the Katas model. For all of you, my brothers and sisters that went through the masterclass, you know the Katas model, the calling, the training, the authority, the sending, and the accountability. A servant leader responds to calling bigger than themselves. Calling asks, who am I responsible for? As leaders here, God has entrusted us with being responsible for one of the biggest sectors of the world, the sector that employs the biggest people, the biggest number of people, the sector that supports the biggest percentage of most of our economies. It is our responsibility as leaders to understand, as servant leaders, to understand how can we overlook on self-appeasement to the people we are responsible towards serving. How best can we identify their cause? How best can we empower them? How best through IDF and other CDCs we are operating can we work together with them? We have the issue of training. A servant leader trains others to surpass them, to empower them. May you please unmute your mic so that we clearly communicate without any interruption. I was talking about the purpose of training. A servant leader trains others. If people cannot function without you, then you're not serving. Fellow leaders, very many. I'll give you an example of some of in Uganda. That one I have no problem, diplomatic problem. In Uganda, we've had a series of very many successful entrepreneurs who have built up successful business empires. But the day God calls them is the day their empires crumble. Reason, they did not train. They did not train strong independent institutions. They did not spread their vision. They did not spread their mission to others to push it beyond them. That is why the day they die is the day the contracts they've been getting end, is the day the incentives they've been getting end, is the day all the people they've been working with disappear, simply because they did not train a team that would surpass, that would push their agenda beyond themselves. Leaders that have servant leaders that have offered institutions that focus more on training have had their institution surpass individual. There are companies like Apple. Steve Jobs died 15 years ago, but today Apple is still among the most biggest strong entities globally. I was talking about entities like Coca-Cola, entities like Pepsi, entities like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, name it. They are global brands. They are traveling nations. They are pushing generations simply because their leaders trained. Authority is stewardship. It is not control. It is protection and empowerment. As leaders, God has entrusted us with authority. We have to pass that authority to the people we are working with. We have to empower those we are working with. We have to empower the informal sector, because as you know, some of us come from countries where the informal sector faces the biggest issues of injustice when it comes to evictions, when it comes to improper representation by leaders, when it comes to evictions, when it comes to lack of financial capital, when it comes to limited skilling. So all our issues, we as leaders have to think about legal representation. How best can we extend and teach our people their rights? How can we legally help them? How can we financially empower them? How can we empower them to turn their enterprises into big entities? That is how we can achieve our goal of creating 1 million entrepreneurs that who will create more employment opportunities to our people and push further and better. Sending. Servant leaders release people. They send people. They are not insecure. They are confident enough to multiply. Comrades, as I told you earlier, very many nations here in Africa, I won't mention them because of diplomatic purposes, what on are divided with political insecurity simply because leaders don't want to send others. Leaders are insecure seeing others. Leaders focus more on building followers rather than other strong, independent leaders that will push on their nations. And nations that have mastered the class of transition, nations that have answered the question of transitions, nations that focus more on sending and building more great leaders, are strong economies, are stable politically, have strong business environments where people and investors can do work without anything interacting them. So, as leaders, as servant leaders, we should not feel insecure to train and send those who've trained. We shouldn't feel insecure. In fact, we should feel happy. We should feel motivated. That is why our leaders like Comrade Mary, that is why our leaders like our global president, President Viventa, are doing. They are sending us in our respective nations, in our respective CDCs, under our respective sectors to train, recruit, and empower others. They are sending us. They do not fear. Because of them not fearing, we are multiplying. We are preaching the gospel of the EDF. We are working hard to empower others. This takes us to the purpose of accountability as servant leaders. A servant leader stays accountable. Position does not remove immunity. Accountability protects that. As leaders, we have to be accountable to those we lead, and we have to encourage those we lead to be accountable on the tasks we send them towards doing, on the tasks they expect us to do. That is how we shall develop trust within each other. That is how we shall build movement, not monuments. That is how we shall create global movements, not simple symposiums. This takes us to the internal enemies of servant leadership. These are 5 in number, great enemies. One is pride. Pride is a very, very, very bad and enemy of progress. Insecurity. Whenever you're insecure, to surround yourself with the right people, to surround yourself with people with wisdom, with people with skills, that is an enemy of servant leadership. That is the reason why in some of our countries, I'm sorry, let me mention this, the good thing I'm in Uganda, nothing will happen to you, the rest. That is the reason why in some countries, like where some of us come from, is we have very many political prisoners. People are in prison simply because those arresting them are insecure. Seeing good, wise people with good, brilliant ideas speak, talk. Insecurity is a very, very bad and enemy of servant leadership. Control, always loving to control, wanting to be on control on each and everything. Great leaders are leaders who identify others, empower them, and give them various tasks. As leaders, you may not be the best on each and every task, but your ability to send others, empower them after training them to carry out their tasks where you might not be the best, can act good. But whenever you feel like you want to control people, you want to be in control on each and everything, where you have expertise and where you do not have the expertise, it creates a lot of anxiety, and it affects the institution. Recognition of anger, uncontrolled anger, is very, very bad. Fear of replacement, as I earlier said, very many organizations are crumbling in Africa simply because the leaders entrusted with leadership fear replacement. Whenever they see replacement, they fight. Insecurity comes in. They fight those who they think would replace them. That is why we have very many war-torn nations. Nations are fighting simply because leader X does not want to leave power. Associations are collapsing simply because leaderships do not want to relinquish power to other leaders. And that causes failure. Nations are torn apart, institutions collapse, businesses collapse. These do destroy organizations overnight, and they destroy arts faster. And once the art is damaged, leadership becomes dangerous, comrades. Now, this takes us to the visceral alignment. For all of you that have went through the masterclass, the visceral alignment, you very well know about it. Vision without servant leadership becomes dictatorship automatically. Vision without servant leadership. We have seen leaders who are not servants have become dictators in their associations and organizations. Hence, make very many people either leave their organizations or form alternative organizations to fight this organization. And this ends up creating wars instead of development and progress. Skill without servant act becomes manipulation. Incentives without a servant act become corruption. This is a very, very big problem. I'll use the example of Uganda here, because at least for me, I'm in Uganda and I see things firsthand. We have very many who would have been very good examples with great initiative, but simply because the leaders at the top are non-servant leaders, there would be incentives to help their associations are used for personal gain. That ends into corruption, and the results of corruption is division, war, imprisonment, collapse, and sometimes poverty. So incentives in the art of a leader who is not a servant results into corruption, and corruption results into collapse. Resources without a servant leaders become a waste. When his resources and incentives go into the hand of a leader who is not a servant, they are wasted. Once things collapse, that is a waste of time, energy, resources. Action without servant leader becomes pressure automatically. Servant leadership is the moral foundation of the execution. As leaders, we should always reflect on that as we are carrying out our operations in our various CBDCs, as we are carrying out our operations in our various entities. This takes us to practical execution. This week, as leaders, we need to focus on the following this week. Listen more than we speak. Develop one person intentionally. We should try as much as possible to develop that person around you intentionally, so that you can foster continuity, multiplication. Publicly honor those that have done some good contribution. I want to salute our global president, Mr. David Deventer. Under this chapter 7, he honored South Africa's legendary leader for the South African Informal Sector Traders Alliance, Mrs. Roshida Mura. Hope I've pronounced the name very well. And he acknowledged that he learned a lot from him. He got inspired from him to push more. Through his acknowledgement, I was forced to go and do more research about him, about her, to go follow her on her socials, to see the work she has been doing. But I wouldn't have done that if the global president hadn't acknowledged her good work. Out of the global president acknowledging her good work, I managed to know about her. I managed to begin to get the ego of trying to see how can I meet and exchange with her. And that is my mission before today. This year ends. I want to have a meeting with her and learn more from her. But I wouldn't have got that if I had not seen a recognition from our global president, Mr. David Venter. So publicly honor someone's contribution. That will motivate many. That will provide information to many who have not known him or who have not known his good. Make one decision that benefits mission over your image. One of the problems we are facing here, mainly in Africa, is most of us focus more on our personal images and personal interests. All the decisions we are making, we are focusing more on that rather than focusing on the mission that affects service, that affects multiplication. So as leaders this week, we should focus on making decisions, doing work that benefits our mission over our personal image. Apologize quickly when you're wrong. Apology saves a lot. It prevents you from would be very many questions and answers, from would be very many questions and wars. So as servant leaders, we should reflect on these things this week. Servant leadership is not a theory, it is a daily practice. So our reflection today as leaders, ask yourself honestly, who is growing because of me? You see, sometimes we tend to look on growth based on financial growth. I think we should focus on growth beyond financial incentives to knowledge, connection, spiritual growth. We should always ask ourselves, who is growing because of me? As leaders, as global leaders, as sector leaders, as CDC leaders, as leaders of the community, as entrepreneurs, we should make sure we empower and push growth to our people. If I step away, would the system continue? That is a very, very good question. We should always ask ourselves, can my ambition continue without me? Companies like Apple have surpassed simply because of that. Their founders died. I was talking about the Coca-Colas that have existed for more than 130 years plus. They've surpassed simply because the leaders reflected on the ability of them having institutions that can exist beyond them. Am I building dependence or leadership? Dependence is very bad because dependence will lead to collapse. Very many organizations, be it political organizations, be it organizations, have collapsed simply because leaders think about creating people that only look at them for dependence purposes, not leadership. Leadership offers continuity. Dependence ends with that person or with that group of people who think the world has to depend on them. Ask yourself this question: would my team say I've served them? As leaders, we should reflect on this. We should always ask ourselves that great question: would my team really appreciate my service towards them as a servant leader? That is one thing we should always focus on as leaders. The challenge: do not pursue leadership for status, pursue leadership for service. The world has had enough loud leaders. It now needs humble builders, leaders who are committed. I cited an example our president cited in this chapter. He was talking about the chairperson of SIATI, South Africa Informal Sector Traders Alliance. How she served as a servant leader. She couldn't delegate certain things. She could spearhead work as a servant leader. She would go on, engage with her people, teach her people, act as a bridge with other authorities to see that our people negotiate and survive. She would advocate against would be injustices, would people would face. So we have to be humble builders. So the commissioning code, our global mission is to eradicate poverty, eliminate social illness, rise transformational global leaders. Vision 2030 cannot be achieved through ego leadership. As I've earlier mentioned, ego leadership is the reason why we are having auto nations globally. Ego leadership is the reason why very many institutions are collapsing. Ego leadership is the reason why very many workers' organizations are fighting each other instead of fighting for the main cause of the members of their sectors. So, Vision 2030 will best be achieved if we build servant leaders, not leaders with ego. Vision 2030 requires servant leaders. Leaders who build more transformation to 10,000 leaders, who will empower 1 million informal sector businesses, who will restore dignities in the community, raise youth and women, strengthen families. If you feel the burden to serve, if you know you were born to build, if you understand that leadership is responsibility, then step forward. We have to step forward as leaders. Join the global network of servant leaders, not to control, not to dominate, not to manipulate others, but to serve, build, and transform the community, the CDCs, the sectors we are leading. Let history record our generation that we did not chase power. We carried out purpose. We did not protect positions, but we built people, we empowered the people God has given us to empower. And because we lead with servant acts, poverty will automatically be eradicated out of our community. If we empower the 1 million entrepreneurs, if we empower the 10,000 leaders, we shall be in position to empower very many businesses, create more employment opportunities, create more voices that can speak against injustices, create more avenues that will offer training and skills to others, and we shall have very strong economies and very strong business entities. That is what you have to give ourselves as leaders. You're not called to be important. You're called to be impactful. Lead from the heart, serve with the strength, build with the vision, and your leadership will outlive you. Comrades, nations whose leaders have worked on the following principles have outlived their services, have outlived them. That is why today there are some countries you admire. Their policies are pushed by strong independent institutions. Leaders who pursued ego up to now, their nations, their organizations, their entities are in total turmoil. So, comrades, I thank you for listening to me. Comrade Mayambala from Uganda, East Africa. It has been a great honor to speak before you. I want once again to salute all of you for serving the IDF, pushing our agenda. In a special way, I want to thank my head of leadership development and training Africa, Comrade Mary. I want to salute our global president, His Excellency Mr. David Venter, for this great opportunity, for the masterclass, and pledge to push on our agenda in order for us to achieve Vision 2030. I thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, His Excellency David Venter, for this amazing opportunity. GP, you are no more GP, you are the Excellency. Leaders, let's give our global, our chapter head of VCAN, let's give him some more love. I believe you learned a lot from this class. It was so inspiring, very applicable to his country. He spoke with so much passion. I was almost in tears. In my closure, I just want to thank the global president for this opportunity, the deputy global president for this opportunity. We are raising leaders and not followers. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Remember, the masterclass continues. You might be the next leader speaking. It's getting very engaging, very interactive. We'll be having another leader sharing with us next week. There is a hand raised, Leader Tabani. Do you want to say something quickly? We're out of time. Please go ahead quickly.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairperson.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm awesome, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I'll be very short. I like you received the invite for this masterclass. So I missed a lot. I've noticed that I joined almost, it was around about 1:45. So I've missed a lot. So I'm just checking with you if it's possible to get the copy of the presentation?
Of course. You will get the recording, leaders. Thank you for asking. You will definitely get the recording of today. We've got a YouTube channel. It will be shared. And of course, the platform will also be open so we can engage even more after this session. Thank you so much. And please, next time, let's join early because there's so much we can learn together. Leaders, again, thank you. Thank you, Global President. If not for you, we wouldn't see so much passion in our leader in Uganda. Another leader is coming. Thank you, Team Uganda. Amazing. All right, I'll see your email address. Leaders, thank you. Thank you for joining the call. We're going to see you again next. Yeah, I'm grateful for this. Amazing. We're going to see you next week. The same time. We are here to build one another, learn from each other's country. All right. Be energized from each other's passion. And we are building something strong. You can see now we are building something strong. Let the fire keep burning. Thank you, all my leaders and the executives, for joining the call. Leaders, we're looking forward to see you next week. Let's engage. Let's move to the WhatsApp group. Let's engage even more. Join a sector today. Join leadership development. If you want to be online talking to everyone, join every sector. Every sector is important. We have learned today about servant leadership, and let's keep building together. Thank you to all the global leaders for giving us this opportunity. I believe we're building one mind. We have one vision, and Vision 2030, it is happening. Let's give ourselves a big hand, and we'll see you next week, the same time. God bless you, and have a most beautiful day further. Thank you, everyone. God bless you.